Fox 21 Local News presents a special primetime panel, Internet Safety in the Current Digital Age.
Good evening and welcome to a special Fox 21 news presentation covering internet safety in the current digital age.
June marked Internet Safety Month across America, and with issues like child exploitation still on the rise, we felt now is the time to address this topic.
So we have gathered a panel of local experts to help us understand what's happening now and how you can better protect your children and yourself.
This includes Rick Dahlman, Director of Staff and Program Development at Banning Lewis Academy, Preston Goff, VP of Global Communications at the Exodus Road, and Lieutenant Corey Hutchinson with the Colorado Springs Police Department.
We want to thank all of you for being here tonight, and we look forward to your insight and your expertise on these topics. So let's get right into our first question.
Yeah, starting off, groups like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the Exodus Road say they have witnessed a dramatic increase in the prevalence of online exploitation, particularly with young people. Now, what is driving this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to kind of jump in there. So, it's true. If you look at the numbers between 2021 and 2023, over 300% increase in things like online child enticement. So it's drastic. I think certainly, like, if we look back at, what happened in those years, a lot of our habits changed during the COVID pandemic. You have a lot more young people online, and with that comes increased access to those young people for those who perhaps have nefarious intentions. So I think that certainly is one component of what we see as really driving a lot of the increased online child exploitation. Yeah.
And Lieutenant, you have numbers that back this increase.
I do. So just the numbers from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the number of cyber tips that come into the Colorado Springs Police Department on an annual basis. So back in 2022, we had about 8,300 cyber tips come into the state of Colorado. That number increased to 10,700 in 2023, 13,100 last year, and then year to date so far this year, we're already at 8,400 cyber tips that have come in. Wow. So we're on track to get up to 17,000 cyber tips just in Colorado this year.
It could be good news, it could be bad news. People are more informed, or at the same time there's more cases.
There's more cases, there's more people out there reporting, there's more companies out there that are reporting to NECMEC, to making those reports to try to keep kids safe. So it can be a good thing.
Now clarify NECMEC for us so people at home know what
it's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Mm-hmm. It's a national organization funding from Department of Justice that help with missing kids, they help with exploited kids, they help with all sorts of different things. They're a great resource for us, and I'm sure for you guys as well, and they can be for the citizens as well, which I think we can talk about here in a little bit.
Right. Yeah, they also run the U.S. Cyber Tip Line,
yeah.
So that's where that data is coming from.
Yeah, some good information.
Yeah.
Our other question we want to ask is that the platforms where the predators seem to be seeking out victims online. Since we haven't heard from you yet, Rick, have you seen anything common in the schools?
Yeah, well, I think the online community is so vast through smartphones, and our students are on all of the platforms, from Instagram to Discord, some of the gaming apps, anything out there, and through text message, people are able to contact students. And I think the technology is advancing so quickly, and I think the learning curve to be on top of it as a parent is a little difficult. So that's where our partnership with Influence is trying to get families aware of how they can protect their children is very important.
It really is.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then going off to our next question here, because of these increasing concerns, when is a good time to allow your child to have a phone?
Influence says wait until 8th. Right. Wait until 8th grade. From the education stance, I tell parents they should be waiting till 18, honestly. I think the flood of what it does to our brain, and if you look out there, there's plenty of research and plenty of documentaries out there that are talking about the impact it's had on us as a society.
Yeah, we tell parents, like Rick mentioned, we really suggest the wait until 8th. It's actually a movement that people can look up. It's this idea that, if you can hold out on giving a cell phone to your child until the 8th grade, they're going to have the best shot at having the psychological development, the mental development to be able to handle that device. That said, you're really right. Like, delay as much as possible. Sure. Delay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody with children would know that. When you first said wait to 8, I'm like, 8th grade. You want to clarify that.
Yes, the later the better. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of safeguards can you put up for children to protect them from those online attacks? We'll start with you.
You know, I think it's when you go and you purchase that phone for the first time, ask the phone company, hey, what safeguards are on the phone? Because I believe with most of them now, you can set up and limit it to where they only have the ability to receive phone calls or make phone calls to certain individuals, and you can limit who that is. You can limit the amount of time that they can be online. You can restrict some of the apps that they can be on, and a lot of that is available through the cell phone companies. So I think if you start with that, that's a really good place to start putting those guidelines in place. And then when you get home, if you, depending on how you have your guidelines set up even more strict guidelines. You know, let the kids know, hey, you're not on the phone first thing in the morning. And you can take it to school, but you can only use it to call us when school's out or in an emergency. And then at nighttime, limit the number of hours that they can be on there. And you can also do that through the cell phone or through the internet provider to say, this device can only be on the internet between these hours. So that's one step that they can take.
Yeah, we certainly encourage that. You know, if parents are looking for kind of an out-of-the-box solution to be able to implement as well, you know, apps or services like Bark, Canopy, these are some platforms, some software that they can implement to help, you know, manage some of those settings and really automate that. But I'll tell you what, I think one of the biggest things that we encourage is learn to talk about this topic with your child every day. Practice that muscle, because ultimately they are going to encounter something online. You can put all the privacy and security pieces in place that you want, but if they don't know what to do, if and when someone contacts them or they encounter something that doesn't feel quite right, then ultimately that's still a pretty significant vulnerability. So learn to have the conversations.
I think the only addition I would have that we encourage is having clear time where there's tech-free time in the home, and that can offer a platform where you're talking about conversation of what's happening, but also that time I don't think families connect like they used to, right? And I think we need to be intentional as a society about reigniting that and speaking intentionally and slowing down and having time together as a family. So
yeah, just set that rule and make it clear.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And to build off of both of those, just to be present with your kids. You know that there's those times where it's going to be no tech time, and that's going to be dinner time where everybody sits around the table and has dinner again, or it's that time when we are going to have those difficult conversations. But be present and know what's going on with your kids. And I know it's tough, you know, with everybody out there with busy schedules and some people working multiple jobs. But the more you can do that, the easier everything else will become.
Makes sense. Good information.
Really good information. Yeah, thanks you guys. So you're watching a primetime panel on internet safety.
Up next, we're going to address the vulnerabilities that you might have online and how these rise in digital dangers presents itself.
Welcome back to our primetime panel on internet safety.
We're going to continue our questioning here, and we're kind of following up what we were talking about in the break. Is there a certain profile of a child or teen that predators seek out? We'll start with you, Preston, because you brought this up during the break.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the truth is, one of the things that we say often is that if a child has a device in their hand, they are vulnerable to this kind of exploitation. That said, what we do know is that there are some kind of common questions that perhaps a predator might be trying to seek out the answers to as they're engaging with a potential victim. So they might, you know, be asking questions to determine a variety of things, including does a child have access to their device at night? Are they online in kind of an unmonitored space? And similarly, is the screen that they are, you know, speaking to this person through, is it unmonitored? Is anybody watching those conversations, or do they kind of have like the ability to have those without any moderation? And then lastly, do you have a healthy relationship with your parents or your guardians? Is there someone in your life who's checking in on you? And if the answers to those things are yes, no, and no, then more than likely they're going to be more at risk to this kind of exploitation.
And I'd also say that the predators are watching. You know, they're on all these platforms, or they're watching these games, and they're seeing who's online, and they may be watching some of the conversations, and they may see that this person over here may not be talking to anybody for a little while, and so they may just reach out blindly and say, hey, how are you doing? Or talk to them about whatever game they're playing. Hey, that was a nice move, or you're really good at this game, and start building up those friendships and opening up those lines of communication. but they'll watch those people for a while to see if they're really interacting with somebody or if they are being monitored by a parent or anything like that. And so they're paying attention to the small things.
And it's not so you're talking gaming systems. So we're putting the phone aside now, and they're playing games and they're communicating through these devices.
It can be on the phone, it can be on on a tablet, but it can be through a gaming system as well, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy, and kind of, similar, but a little bit different. What vulnerabilities would an online predator look for when they decide to target online?
Gosh, I mean, it's hard to, it's kind of sad to say this, but one of the biggest vulnerabilities is just simply this desire to be seen and valued. So like these short statements that were mentioned, this idea of just saying, hey, you're really good at playing that game, that alone can be, feel like doting, like a compliment, like somebody really just wants to build a relationship with you. That shouldn't be a vulnerability. It's a natural human thing, and yet that can be a doorway in. I'm sure you see this, young people are always looking for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could trace some trends to students who might not have as many friends or have as strong of a relationship with their parents or open of a relationship, being more vulnerable. But I think, unfortunately, it's really sad that these people focus and refine their practices on this, and they start in a game as simple as potentially Roblox, where they're going to have one point of contact and then they can work to move in a different direction. So it's just really sad and unfortunate. And I think in the adolescent age, we are often seeking validation, right? And that's something that when you get that, it can be a trigger. You'll have a brain response, a dopamine response that you're going to be attracted to and maybe open up to something. And that's why we got to be out there educating parents and students.
Have you seen that, Lieutenant? Like the vulnerability is a common theme with the people that are targeted?
Absolutely. It's the kids that don't have as many friends, or the kids that may be home alone for an extended period of time. Sometimes they might seem like they're not as popular as others, and so they're paying attention to the games on the tablets, on the phones, or on the gaming systems, and that's where they get their validation. And as soon as somebody says, hey, you're really good, I'd like to play with you again, can you come back tomorrow night? Here's my screen name. Let's make sure we get in the same room or the same game tomorrow night. They just start building those relationships, and it doesn't take long. I mean, it can be in a matter of a day or two or a week or two. It doesn't take long to build those relationships with the kids, that now all of a sudden they have a friend that they can go and play this game with. And so they feel like they're part of a group, and then things turn bad.
And to that end, a lot of times the conversation is then moved off of that platform. So it's, hey, I'd love to connect now on Snapchat or on this other platform that allows us to have conversations that we can't have on the game site. And so it becomes this place where there's less control even there over what is being shared and also what's being saved and screenshot and captured in that way.
Absolutely.
Now, along those same lines, as an educator, Rick, how have you seen the rise of digital dangers present themselves in the classroom?
Absolutely. Well, I would say the interactions from student to student and student communities from a group text message standpoint, I don't think students are at the level, adolescent-aged students are at the level to have that type of conversation. So much that we see a lot of misinterpretation of language, right? And things that are said that are not the same that it would be in person. So it's just a very vulnerable space and open for students to be attacked.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, this does spark a lot of, kind of fear, I imagine, among parents listening to this. And so, is there a way to limit access online when an adult isn't present?
Absolutely. I think there's settings on, I'm an iOS user, so I don't know about the Android world, but I think all of them have their own settings where you can put restrictions on them and who your child can communicate with. It is a bit of a learning curve and a bit of a struggle because your kid wants to be having more freedom, right? And I'm living that right now with 2 teenage kids, and it's a reality, but I think it's something that's about safety and very important. But there are definitely restrictions within the apps themselves. And you can put on your computers at home as well as additional apps that you could download and use.
I'll just add that, I think we are all so often used to talking about like raising our kids to be good citizens. And I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot at the Exodus Road and Influence is this idea of, can we raise them to be good digital citizens as well? Because actually, like, if you think about it, you spend as much time in an online neighborhood as you do in a physical neighborhood every day. So while we want to help you parent, like put in the practices that are needed to limit their exposure to things that they're not ready for because they're still an adolescent, we also want to help you be a trusted guide to walk them through what it looks like to be model healthy digital citizens, so that as you step into more responsibility and you move towards adulthood, you're able to then enter into a world without those guardrails in place and operate healthily. Because, you know, ultimately we're seeing like the same issues that are affecting 15-year-olds are affecting 20-year-olds too. It doesn't just end when they turn 18. And so, yeah, it's a both and. It's what are the tools to put in place, and what are the conversations, and what are the behaviors that need to be modeled by a parent or guardian?
Yeah, it's setting that example.
Right.
You know, if they see you on your phone or on your tablet, your device all the time, they're going to think that's normal. And then they hear you talking openly about what you see on there, or maybe they hear you talking coarsely. They're going to think that that's normal and that they should be doing that as well. And then they get around their friends who maybe have similar instances of that happening in their homes, and then it becomes normal for a bigger group, and then they have a bigger influence over people.
Yeah.
So it's just setting that example, setting the times like we talked about.
Right. Good point. Good information. Just scratching the surface here. You're watching a primetime panel on internet safety.
We'll talk how to make sure your children feel safe discussing these topics and reporting exploitative activity after the break. Welcome back to our primetime panel on internet safety.
We've really heard some great responses to these questions we've asked. We got another one here. What are some signs of cyberbullying? When I think cyberbullying, I think school. So let's start with you, Rick.
Yes, absolutely. I think in students you can see them being withdrawn and not really wanting to talk, and maybe a bit more shy in their demeanor, which I think could be kind of natural in an adolescent age child. But it is something that I think we do experience, and I think in the internet or in the texting land, I think it's so quick, right? Our communication is so quick to where in the olden days, we would have live conversation, we'd have to respond to that. But a quick text message that can go back and forth, have 20 exchanges between a person, can just go from something that's pretty mellow to something that can be pretty intense. And then you have a child who's potentially perseverating on that all night long, right? So it's impactful and it's sad. And I think the intent of the original person might not have been bullying. It might just be trying to have a corrective, conversation in there. So.
Yeah, and it might not just be single. It's like you said, that group text, and then one thing leads to another and escalates quickly. And have you guys seen signs of that?
The other thing I would add is just check on that change in behavior. If all of a sudden they've been an outgoing student, they've been doing well in school, but now all of a sudden they're more withdrawn. Maybe their grades are dropping a little bit, or maybe they're telling you they don't want to go to school. Then that might be a hint that there's something going on with some of this cyberbullying stuff with the big groups. Maybe they used to be involved in different clubs or different activities, different sports, and now all of a sudden they don't want to do that. Again, it's just knowing your kiddos and knowing what they normally act like, and then when you start seeing these other things, have those conversations and just say, hey, what's going on? What's bugging you? It's about knowing your kids.
Yeah, I just add, I think the difference between cyberbullying perhaps and bullying that a lot of us maybe experienced in high school is this idea that it's hidden, so it doesn't have to physically be seen for it to be taking place and having its impact. It's compounding, like was mentioned. It can grow in ripples and waves in ways that are fueled by kind of the way that it's shared online. And then also it's really not like, it doesn't require a physical location. So for that reason, there's no relief for perhaps somebody who's experiencing it. And that's really particularly damaging.
Yeah. And sort of branching off of that, if somebody notices these warning signs, this kind of goes into our next question here. If a child does fall victim to an online attack, how can parents make sure they're comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think in our instance, when it's often peer-to-peer in schools, I will say that schools across the city and the nation have proactive exchanges with students encouraging them to be kind right throughout. But I think as we all experienced growing up, when we are in those developmental stages of adolescence, we say things that we don't really think about first, right? So I think from the school end, we strongly encourage parents to connect with other parents in appropriate and relational building ways. Leaving it to the schools to figure out all on their own is a lot, and I would argue unfair for schools and education to have to solve. I think we as parents need to step in and connect with other parents and educate the community together in that. So.
I'd say I'm not sure that there is a pathway where you're going to feel comfortable in that conversation.
Right. It's not very comfortable. Right.
Yeah, and actually, like, that's where it's your turn, parent, to kind of step forward and be the parent in that situation. And certainly, like, there are great resources to empower you in that. But there is no like hero who's out there like, this is what I shine at.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
But it's also not something that you can shy away from. I mean, it's probably not an easy conversation, but you can't shy away from it because it's an important conversation. You're going to see those signs from your kids that are being bullied or exploited, and it's important for the parents to be brave enough to step up and brave enough to admit that, hey, this is hard for me too, but we need to have this conversation. What is going on? So it's okay to let the kids know that, hey, this isn't my favorite thing. And maybe that gets them to open up a little bit as well.
Now, this would be different for all of you, but how would somebody go about reporting different types of online exploitation? What's the best way? I know schools might have a certain way opposed to the public. And
I think the school's greatest tool that we use of an anonymous reporting system is called Safe to Tell. That is out there, and anyone can make a report to that is anonymous, and schools and school districts will follow up with individuals that are typically victims or those that may be in harm.
And then for us, we also get the Safe to Tell tips when they come in. The majority of our tips come in through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children through that cyber tip line. So anybody can go on to the cyber tip line or onto NECMEC's site and file a cyber tip, and then it comes to us as the lead agency for the Colorado ICAC task force, that we start the investigation. Then if we determine that it happened in Denver or Grand Junction or Pueblo, we ship it off to those agencies. But you can go online there and make it. They have a 24-hour number that you can call and make a report. You can always call our dispatch, the non-emergency number, 719-444-7000, and make that report. There are just multiple ways to make that report. And some of it can even be anonymous to a degree.
Yeah, that's good information. So, and kind of going back to the parents now, what are some tips parents can share with, our children about best practices when it comes to an online presence? And we did kind of mention just being good stewards, but we'll just kind of open that up again.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, as a parent is trying to engage with a child on this topic, I think really creating the plan with them for what steps can take place if the child encounters someone or something online that feels off is the best pathway forward. One of the things we recommend is like a family technology agreement, and we actually provide one as part of our resource package, and it allows for both parents and teens to get into the conversation and to articulate what's great about the online world, what do we not like, what do we do if something happens, who can we trust, who can we go to get support, so that plan is in place and they can just kind of walk forward in those steps that they've already agreed upon if that circumstance happens.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys. We've been hearing some great information tonight, and thank you all so much for coming. Obviously, this is all just, really good stuff.
it really is some information that we can use. There's no right or wrong, but you put us in the right path of great tips that we can share.
Yes.
We appreciate
absolutely.
you coming here. Thanks so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us for this special presentation of Fox 21 News discussing internet safety in an incredibly digital time.
To learn more about these issues and how to address them, head to our website, fox21news.com.
Have a great night.